Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of the Men's Room Podcast. As you know, in the Men's Room Podcast, we talk about absolutely everything. And today's episode is going to be, I think, Mr. Jennings, a bit of a tough one for both of us. We're going to be talking about grieving. When I say the word grieving, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, it's synonymous with death, isn't it? It's synonymous with getting over a death of somebody that you love.
Is it death? Is it that?
For me, grieving is synonymous with death for me. I think you can grieve for many things.
Yeah.
I don't think it always has to be
But
death.
the peak of it is obviously death.
And maybe this is a sign of a fairly privileged and lucky life, but the only time I've really had to grieve, apart from very recently, in fact, is a death. Like, I haven't had to grieve for anything else. I haven't had... I don't know. I haven't got divorced, for example. I haven't. There are other reasons to grieve, most certainly, but I haven't experienced any of them. Yeah,
I think my first or earliest memory of grieving, I'll say earliest, it was actually as an adult / child, was when my best friend passed away through violence. It was actually through violence, and I remember at the time.
How old were you?
I was 22.
And how old was he?
Olu, 22. Same age group. And he got stabbed outside of a nightclub in London. And like, it's a bit of a crazy story, but it was his birthday, everyone was celebrating. He then decided to go to a club just to get into that club before, back in the day, if you're not there before 12, you can't get in type things. He wanted to get in the club. And then we started hearing stories about, Olu's been stabbed in the club. Like, someone smashed a bottle over his head and then he got stabbed. And it's funny because I'm not going to try and paint the picture that we were just, perfect little kids running around. There was a few naughty kids within the group, but naughty to the point where you're doing things that maybe you shouldn't have done, but not to the point where you're killing someone.
Not this.
Do you know what I mean? So it was always, you're out, you're having a bit of fun. It never got to that. So his wife was at home.
Oh, he's married?
Married. Pregnant with, going to get married, fiancé. Pregnant with their second kid. So the news obviously had to go to her. And I didn't tell her, it wasn't me, it wasn't my job, but there's someone told her that a husband to be is not coming home. He's not coming home. And then obviously she, as much as I grieved, I remember always thinking about, I'm grieving, but I almost softened my grieving thinking, what is she going through?
Yeah. It's not your grief effectively in that situation, is it?
No.
Despite it being
extremely painful for me.
Yeah.
But I've lost my friend and, someone that I confided in a few things, but she's going through something I can't even imagine.
It's horrific.
So she's not hearing that, he's been stabbed, but he's okay, he's in hospital. Yeah. Or he's had a fight, but he's all right. He's not coming home.
At such a young age.
Not coming home. The breadwinner, not coming home. Your family just immediately just falls apart there and then.
Yeah, that's horrific.
Horrible.
And did it hit you hard?
Massively. It, like painfully, actually, thinking about it now. Just because, just a very, very close friend. It's weird.
Were you there with him that night prior to him going to the other place?
Yeah.
And did he go to the other place on his own?
He went to the other place with a friend of ours called Remy, who's not that life.
Troublesome.
Yeah, not like that. Quiet guy, nice guy, just wanted to go out. And even back then, doing silly things, you knew that, okay, if we see certain people, something could happen. But you're almost thinking, okay, something could happen, could be a little fight. You're not thinking, something could happen. Never that. And it's funny, the guy that actually killed Olu tried to run away, tried to leave the country. He went to Somalia, then went to Miami, and then I think got extradited from Miami back to London. Yeah. But the weirdest thing about all of that is it caused so much. It was probably the one time when I thought, as a stupid little kid, you think you're a bad boy, whatever. You're running around doing silly things. It was the one time where I thought, okay, this is not my life. Because I remember my older brother kind of having to kind of just stop now, because this is now getting out of hand. This person's fighting that person, this person's fighting that person. But going back to the grieving part, it just really affected me. I can't put it into words. Like, I grieved more from that, probably more than hearing my dad had passed. Maybe.
I think I can understand that. I think I can understand it because shock.
Yeah.
Presumably your father was of an age where it can't be as shocking as a 22-year-old.
No, it can't
Do you know
be.
what I mean? It can't be.
No, it can't be. I think just the way he passed away as well. Do you know what I mean? The violence.
Yeah.
When
so needless.
So needless.
So pointless. And I imagine that the person who was involved would now, at the age of 40 would say, so pointless. Like, everybody involved probably assumes that the whole thing was now so avoidable, so regrettable. But yeah, I imagine that is like one of the worst things that you could ever experience as a young man. Your friend dying through something that is so avoidable.
Yeah.
Did it affect you in terms of like progressing through the next few years? Like, how regularly did it feature in your mind?
I think for the next 5 or so years, a lot. Like the date, I remember the date, 5th of December. I remember that.
And does it come to you now, 5th of December?
All the time. All the time. You just remember, I've actually got a tattoo of him here, but all the time, just
it's so
you
Christmas
remember.
linked as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's so...
But again, I just think of his wife, and it's weird now. I think of his son now, 20.
He'll be the age that you were when it happened.
Yeah.
Do you have any
No, I don't. No, it's a big regret. I don't. I vanished from everyone for a little while.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of grieved themselves. It's weird because he died, and then there was like 3 deaths closely linked that passed away as well within the group. So it really got really violent. So I think everyone dealt with their own grief somehow. But I was just very close with Olu. Like Olu was, he was homeless for a while. He stayed with my family for Christmas. We looked at him like a brother as opposed to just a friend. My mum liked him a lot. She probably didn't know what we were doing, when we left the house, but everyone really loved him. So,
how did your grief manifest itself? Like for some people, I think they can grieve in anger in a situation like that. They could grieve in potentially more violence. They could grieve in solitary confinement.
Yeah, solitary confinement. I turned into a recluse, and I think it's funny because I think I'm still that now. I'm very much shut the door. Don't answer phones, bad communication. There's bad communication. And I feel like I shut myself from the world now.
Do you think that is linked?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I literally went into this, I didn't want to speak to anyone. I just kind of just got into my flat in Stratford and would shut the door and cry or commiserate. I'd even have random dreams of him being alive. And the dreams were so vivid. I remember waking up like thinking, oh my God, he's here. And this has all been some sort of weird... Matrix something going on, but I definitely think he's definitely sent me into a weird world of just shutting everyone away.
Yeah.
Like having someone so close and then go, it made me not want to have people that close to me anymore. Like people to become best friends just in case something happens to them and they vanish. Which is why it took me so long for me and my ex to get really that close, because it was like, no, I don't want you to be that close just in case you then run or vanish or disappear. No,
that's horrific. I think in terms of anything that I think anybody can experience, that exact example has to be one of the worst. Yeah. Effectively, a murder, which makes it on a different scale altogether. It's not a hateful act of nature. It's something that is completely avoidable. I think
violence for all these kids, I know this is maybe taking us away from the podcast conversation, but I think the street violence that all these kids go through nowadays.
I think though, do you know what it is, Ade? I think it's because you're of an age where most people stop thinking even violent thoughts, or thinking that violence is cool, or there was a time in my life when I would certainly glamorise, say, casual culture, which is obviously linked to football violence. Yeah. Like when I was at university, I did a dissertation on football violence and casual culture and the importance of it almost. Whereas now I just think, what on earth are you doing? Like what? But it's because I'm not 23. If we were 23, I'd be having a completely different approach to it. And also, touch wood, I think we've both been fairly lucky of late in terms of the way that our careers have gone. So there's less anger built within us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We don't look at society and think society is taking everything from us and we have nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have nothing. But I'll say this though, like when my dad passed away, so I was 20... It was around the same time as Olu actually, but I was maybe 21, maybe 20. When he passed away, didn't even affect me at all. Like I remember actually.
How old was he?
He was in his 60s. But I remember he wasn't with us, so he'd left my mum, he was in Nigeria. I remember he had a stroke and he came back to see us. And I was like, I ain't seen you for 10 years. Like, even though there was, my childhood growing up, I do remember him, Liverpool, all the stuff. But I remember he came back, he had a stroke. And I remember, because his arm was limp. I remember it was weird, his face, the side of his face had, so I remember looking at him thinking, I felt sorry for you, but I remember how you treated my mum, so I didn't really care. So when he then went back to Nigeria, and then we got the news that our dad's passed away, zero. I'm not joking, didn't affect me. I was with my friends, I was living like a little homeless hostel. I thought, I'm going through my own struggles, I don't really care. Years passed by, and it really affected me. Like, I thought, okay, I need a man to talk to. Like, I felt like my brothers were just doing what they were doing. I had no real man in my life to have a conversation with about relationships, about just going through shit. Do you know what I mean? Going through struggles. So I remember, like, for about a good 2 years, it really affected me that dad wasn't here. So it's weird. Anytime I meet anyone, even you to an extent, and people say, I'm not really talking to my dad, I'm like, talk to your dad. Like, please, if you can, because I would give everything to have just a conversation. Just about anything. Like anything. Like, even when I was going through that, obviously we've done me running away from a marriage. I probably wouldn't have run away if my dad was around. I probably would have had a conversation with my dad. Dad, this is happening. You're like, what are you doing? Where are you? I'm coming now. Type thing. So, at the time, didn't affect me. But then growing up, definitely felt grief not speaking to my dad. Yeah,
I can imagine. I can imagine that would be. I mean, I think you're correct in terms of how it can come back to haunt you later. Yeah. Because you don't necessarily. I had a similar experience in that when my grandmother died. So my father's mum.
Your father's mum, yeah.
And I wasn't close to her and
just that side?
That side of the family. I didn't go to that funeral. This would have been when I was probably 20, maybe a little bit older.
I didn't go to my dad's funeral.
I didn't go to the funeral of my dad's mum. Because I was young, because I was angry, because I felt like it was making a statement, but it was a statement full of bitterness and hate. Now, of course I should have gone to that. I should have gone to that funeral for the rest of the family. My cousins on that side of the family. And I suppose, look, I certainly, it'd be ridiculous for me to say that I grieve for that grandmother, but I kind of grieve for the situation. And it would have put my dad in a very awkward position. It would have been quite embarrassing for him, I think, to have gone to his mother's funeral. And I opted out of going. But at the time, I also think it's very difficult to judge young people for behaving in a way that young people behave in. Like, you know, it would be churlish to say that you should have felt more. You shouldn't have felt more because you felt what you felt at the time, and it was right. At the time. Yeah, and that was it. And there were other things. There were other things going on. Right. But do you know? You mentioned that your dad had a stroke. Do you know what's happened to me over the past 3 weeks now? My grandmother had a stroke, and like as soon as we finish here, I'm going to go to St Pancras. There's an amazing hospital in St Pancras, which is the most old-fashioned. It's like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in there. Yeah. Like, is it like you expect Florence Nightingale to come out? Honestly, it's like I've never known any building like it. You know, and it's all like arches.
It's perfect.
And, like I swear, you could have like hidden in that building during like an air raid or whatever. It's like so old-fashioned. But do you know what I had? Which I don't know if this is even. I don't even know if it would be quantified as grief. But I guess it was grief for me. There was a moment when I looked at my nan, and she's still alive, thank God, right? And touch wood, that continues. But I looked at her face, and I looked at her movement, and there was an element of me that was, I sort of really had a break. I made a mistake. She's got a flat, right, Kilburn High Road, and I was staying over, and I stayed in her flat while she's still in hospital. So I walked in her flat, which I've done 1,000 times.
Without her there, though?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. In terms of like grief, in terms of like a breakdown, I don't think I've ever done it. I don't think I've ever, you know, it's almost cinematic, isn't it? You know, when you see people kind of like break down, they lose, that they potentially have to sit down. Yep. I've never had to sit down in an emotional context.
It's crazy,
ever.
Isn't it?
And I nearly lost my footing. Like I genuinely nearly went over because I walked in her flat, and her flat is like a shrine to me. It's pictures of me and her everywhere, right? And I'd gone from the hospital, and I thought, I kind of felt like I was grieving because the relationship that we had, particularly in that flat, like I turn up late, if I'm staying over, I turn up late, I'm like, Nan, whack the kettle on, I'll be there in a minute. And she's like nearly 90. And like, I just had images of her like, going, you shouldn't even be coming around, it's too late, like having an argument, I'll be there staying. I was like, that may never happen again. Like, fingers crossed, like, please God it does, right? But that specific thing may never happen again. And you can kind of grieve for the loss of someone or a situation when that someone is still alive, because it's a change.
That's very, very interesting that you say that you brought it to. And look, by the way, touch wood, that your gran is all right. Because I need those. That's Ade. I need those voice notes. Yeah,
she really can't pronounce your name, but she absolutely loves you. She absolutely loves you. Her pronunciation of your name. See, I could grieve for the loss of that though. Like I turn up in her house, honestly, and she'll be watching this. She'll be watching this. She'll be watching us on YouTube. She'll have it on all the time, and she'll tell me things that you've said, and I'll say who, and then she'll say your name in the most ridiculous way possible. And I love it, and I don't.
Those moments.
You can grieve for that, can't you? You can grieve for the end.
Yeah, I like when me and my ex split up, I definitely grieved.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example.
I 100% grieved. I was like, my God, like it's done, isn't it? Like, and I felt like, oh my God, I'm walking away for something that I was 100% thinking this was going to be for us until we were 90.
And the second that you walk away, even if you want to go back, you've changed the trajectory. You've changed the landscape.
Like somehow,
you can't.
It's now moved.
You've altered everything.
You've altered the future in a weird way. Yeah.
Because if you walk away from a wedding, even if you then get married, it's different.
It's not the same.
It's different.
Man, I grieved when I found out she'd got married.
Yeah, I bet.
Dude, I was in South Africa, literally just working. I was working. I thought, we're all right now. It's over. Fantastic. People started messaging me, and they're like, Ade, Tokes.
Yeah, she's married.
Tokes. It's about Dami. And I'm like, what's happened? I thought she's in Nigeria. I thought drama. And I was like, go on her Instagram. I was like, I'm blocked. What are you talking about? Go on Instagram. I can't see. So they started sending me photos. I'm working, by the way. I'm like, the f*** is that? Like, literally, I was like, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
My heart literally went, I was like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
I thought it was a maker. I was like, that is. So I remember messaging someone saying it's a joke. It's impossible.
Who's this?
Yeah, I said it's impossible. I said it's a joke. It's impossible. Like, she loves me so much. 12 years. She's not really married to that guy. Then I got to the hotel. She was married. I was definitely grieving.
Do you know that's a fella's thing? Definitely. I think 100%. That's a boy thing.
It's a boy thing.
I remember when
now she's single. I'm like, hey, good.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
Do you know what?
When she was married,
I had a girlfriend. Like, my longest relationship that wasn't Victoria. This will either demonstrate sort of my insanity, or fellas listening to this will listen to this and go, hang on, I did that.
Yeah.
I remember going out with my ex-girlfriend, right? And I wanted to break up with her. I was done. It was over. She had a little flat on Askew Road, sort of Shepherd's Bush. And I remember going there to break up. I was travelling. I literally travelled to end the relationship. I had to get the tube there.
Tube to Shepherd's Bush.
I thought, do it the right way, right? Tube to Shepherd's Bush. I'm getting a 207 bus down the Uxbridge Road. And I'm like literally scripting my bold and convincing final speech, right? I'm so ready to end this. I'm so up for ending it.
Yeah, really?
Mate, I knocked on the door. She opened the door and she went, "You're not coming in. This is over." And I went, "But I love you." I was like, "What were you doing, mate? You've literally turned up here to end it." Yeah. And she's ended it, and you've gone, "Hang on a minute, no, I don't." Yeah. It's just sort of a power thing, isn't it? Or just a young thing. Like, I'd have been 26.
It might be a power thing. Like when I found out she'd got married, I was like, that's impossible. Because she must love me so much, she can't get married to someone else.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
It's an ego there as well.
No, it broke my heart. Yeah, I was grieving. And it's funny because a few friends were messaging me. Like, you got friends and you got friends. So the friends, the below ones, were like, "You're all right." I was like, "Oh, somewhere else." Stupid question. The friends were like,
"No, man, I'm not all right. Can you come around?
Where are you?
Yeah. Bring some Hummingbird Bakery cakes, man, because I ain't all right."
I'll be in London a couple of days. Meet me at the flat. We need to work this one out. Yeah. But look, I think we can all grieve in different ways. And as you just mentioned there is death, and then there's just grieving because something's ended.
I mean, aside from the fairly trite keep going, it gets easier. You know, the standard
Which
advice.
is true, but
but it's so true.
That's all you can give to someone. Yeah. Like, the idea of trying to sit someone down and talk to them, it literally is...
at the time, it feels so hollow.
Yeah,
you know, someone goes, "Oh, mate, time's a healer."
Time's a healer. And I'm like, well, no, it's not, because how long?
Yeah.
Like, talk to me. What are we talking? A week,
but
a month?
But it really is. I think anybody listening to this should really remember, like time is a healer. Like, it really does change And the way that you feel, it's not about days. It's not maybe not even about weeks. It's sometimes not even about months.
Sometimes it's years.
But the way that you feel a year beyond the situation, it really does change.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so sad, when people make sometimes a final decision. Yeah.
I know what you mean. A final one based on that moment now.
Yeah.
As opposed to just
You've made a permanent decision for not a permanent feeling.
Somehow just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah, it's very sad. But
it's almost like what they tell to people: when you're angry, just take a deep breath.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean.
But
just
take a deep breath, but it's got to last 18 months. Basically, is the advice.
Yeah.
No, it's horrific, and there is no easy fix. There is no cure. It's almost a rite of passage, because one thing that is a great leveler in society is everybody, regardless of how privileged, regardless of anything, everybody will have that moment. Everybody will feel as low as you felt that day. Everybody has it. There's a scale, of course, but everybody has their version of it.
Yeah. No one is. No one's immune from it.
No. There's not enough money in the world to stop people having that feeling, because it's totally.
Sure, it is the great leveler.
It's a great leveler. But yeah, to anybody listening to this who is either grieving now or potentially will grieve in the future, the only thing that I can ever sort of say to it is persevere, because it does get
improve.
easier.
It does get better.
It really does.
It really does. Rory, as always. Yeah, good one.
It's a good episode, mate. It's nice to talk to you about it as well.
Indeed. And look, we wish your nan a speedy recovery as well.
Thank you very much. I'm off to St Pancras now.
Potentially, when's she up? Like, fingers, like, if everything goes right.
Do you know what? Last Friday, Ed, I had like one of the worst days of my life. Last Friday, I thought she was coming out. I play football on a Friday morning. Do you know we work on a Friday morning doing the talkSPORT show?
Yeah, and you always play football.
I play football first. Tesco End. That's where I shoot in case any scouts are passing. But I play football on that Friday morning. I went to football, and my nan was going home last Friday. Finished football, I had a load of missed calls. I had to run to UCH in Euston. She'd had what we thought at the time was another stroke. So she's gone from me going to football, I'm like walking down the Barbican, right? Like Mary Poppins, when a bird's like landing on her finger and she's singing to it. Like, that was me walking down the Barbican in the sun. So happy, right? Football ended, just over the moon. Football ended, it was pouring rain, like ridiculously. Last Friday, the game was actually abandoned a bit early because it was so rainy. Not only is she not going home yet, but we think she had another stroke. It wasn't a stroke, mate. She had a urine infection, which sent her mental. Like, I don't know if you've ever known anything about a urine infection. It sends you mental. So we thought it was another stroke. Thank God it wasn't. She's still in now, but I just can't believe like the caring. This place in King's Cross. It just blows your mind.
Private.
No, St Pancras Hospital. It's a recovery hospital. But do you know what is just like amazing about it? To anyone who, like, say you have prejudice in your life. Like, say you are prejudiced about
anything,
maybe racism. Say.
Okay.
This place, mate, they are angels. Angels looking after her. I swear, like, they are the people that are looking after her, doing like hardest things possible to everyone in there. Every single person there is female and African. If you do have that kind of edge.
Yeah, if you ever have that little racial prejudice.
But if anyone does, they have to go there.
You have to go in there and it will change your mind.
Like, I just can't, the way that they look after her in this place would like, it blows my mind, do you know what I mean?
Must be Nigerian. We're taking it. Must be Nigerian.
Yeah.
We're going to take it. Rory, again, thank you so much for opening up, as you always do. Good episode, that one, of the Men's Room podcast. Remember, you can download this podcast from wherever you download your podcast from. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff as always. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Men's Room podcast.